and welcome to episode number 14 of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast, the show where I talk to introverts who grow their business and make a difference. I'm Sarah Senecroce, your host, and thrilled that you're spending this time with me today. Today I'm talking to Andy Mort. Andy was introduced to me by my previous guest, Kat Rose. She suggested him because he also hosts a podcast. And so I just had to listen to his show and thought it would make a good fit and an interesting conversation. Andy's a UK-based musician and writer. He makes and performs music as Atlum Schema and is also the founder of sheepdressedlikewolves.com, a blog and podcast dedicated to encouraging introverted and highly sensitive people to embrace their creativity and push against the expectations of an often overwhelming world. Andy is a multi-potentialite business owner. He runs an online membership site for introverts / HSPs, highly sensitive people, and is in the process of launching one for songwriters. And he's also a part-time undertaker. I'll make sure to ask him about that one too. Hi Andy, how are you today?
Hello, Sarah. I am very, very well, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I was very pleased to hear that you're, happy to talk to me. As I said in the intro, Kat Rose introduced us, and then I went to have a listen to your podcast, and I thought it would make a good conversation. So thanks for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Let's start. I already read your official bio, and it kind of made me smile towards the end where I want to know more about the undertaker business. But besides that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe something that our introverted audience can relate to?
Yeah, well, I think the the undertaking side of things is probably a reflection of what a lot of my life has kind of consisted of up until now, because I wouldn't really consider myself an entrepreneur, although I am. But I've kind of loved finding work that sort of provides variety and a sense of personal meaning to me over the years. So it's kind of something I've moved naturally in the direction of, building a business, because nobody's going to pay me to do everything that I want to do. So it's kind of that. And so, I know a lot of the introverts that I connect with through my website and things have this kind of sense of a need for meaning in their work and things like that. And that's just something that I really, really relate to myself. I've done a huge number of jobs over the years. Started with, I worked for Blockbuster Video for 4 weeks. That was before they went bust.
Did you say 4 weeks?
4 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
And then I left that to work as a telemarketer, which was my record length of employment for 6 weeks. That was before I knew I was an introvert, and it was a really, really bad.
That must have been challenging, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I had a contract for 6 weeks. I was like, when I started, I was like, I'm just going to get to the end of this 6 weeks, and then that will be probably my best accomplishment of my life so far. So,
wow.
I did that. And I went to university, got a degree in politics and international relations. For little reason other than kind of it sounded interesting. So I thought, I want to do that. And just, as I say, life has been a whole variety of different things. I've cared for a friend who had dementia. I've done domestic cleaning, gardening, a whole plethora of odd jobs over the years. And as we said, I currently work as a part-time undertaker on the side of my business. And I guess I like to keep moving and to do stuff alongside my business that kind of keeps me inspired, keeps me interested, and also allows me to focus on doing stuff that doesn't generate income, like as much income, such as like doing creative stuff like music and that kind of thing, where the income's less stable. That's me.
That's your story. Yeah, it definitely makes an interesting story. It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if the whole undertaker thing has anything to do with the sensitivity of an introvert. I don't know, because it takes a special kind of person to be able to do that job, I would say.
Yeah, there's definitely. I mean, I've been doing it for nearly 2 years now, and when I came across the job, well, I first came across it because I was thinking, I wonder how you get into. Because I saw some funeral directors around town. I was like, I wonder how you get into that sort of job. And then by asking that question, I accidentally stumbled into it. But it was something that really did kind of, yeah, I guess spark that flame in me in terms of that sensitivity and the desire to get alongside people in that kind of, those really dark moments, I guess. And while I think some people might say I couldn't do that because it would be very draining on me emotionally and all that sort of stuff, I find that actually kind of lifts me being there, doing that.
Very interesting. Yeah. All right. I guess we could do a whole podcast just on that topic, but I want to get into some other things. So you already kind of went over how you're generating revenue, but tell us a bit. In the intro, I read that you are running online memberships, and since this podcast is for introverts who run an online business, tell us a bit more about what you're doing there and how that generates revenue for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, established an online membership site called The Haven, which is a place, like a community behind closed doors, which is for introverts and for highly sensitive people who kind of have that creative drive and want to kind of learn more about themselves and also how they can, make their impact in whatever way that is for them out in the world. And that started really out of Sheep Dressed Like Wolves, which is my blog and podcast. And it kind of felt like a logical next step because there were a lot of people sort of emailing me with questions, and a lot of the discussions were going on through that rather than out in open comment sections and things like that. So I thought, I think it will actually be really beneficial for people to have a safe place where they can go where it's not readily accessible by anybody. And so it just sort of moved into that. I'd learned about membership sites. I think I'd seen a presentation by Stu McLaren, who is one of the founders of Wishlist Member, which is a software that you use with WordPress to build a membership site within that. And it really got the cogs working in my head, and I was like, oh man, that sounds perfect because it's recurring revenue as well. So it's not going to be one-off. It's not like selling a course or something where you might do a launch and then get a lot of revenue in one go, but then it sort of tails off. It's that month on month income that is going to be able to sustain the creation of other stuff, and it doesn't require it's scalable basically. So if you can do the same amount of work whether you've got one member or 1,000 members, and more or less, apart from bits of admin because you're going to have more requests and stuff. But on the whole, it's a very scalable option and just worked perfectly for me because doing a lot of different things. It was just something nicely that I created that would nicely tick on in the background. And so yeah, I'm now launching a second one, which is for my other love, which is music songwriting. So it's a community for songwriters, sort of developing various aspects of that craft and kind of things around that.
So what kind of content do members of your site get? Like, the reason I always shied away from membership sites is it scared me because I thought I'd have to constantly deliver new content on a regular basis. Is it really that time consuming, or you're actually finding that it's okay, you already have the content?
I mean, it can be time consuming, but if you're sort of wise about it, you can repurpose old stuff in ways that are applicable to members. And I've spent a lot of time sort of asking questions and doing surveys and things like that to see specifically what people want support with and would like to sort of talk about as well. And so I will go through periods of intense I'll sort of create a load of stuff that I'm thinking, right, this is going to be content for the membership. And each month is I do an interview basically. At the moment, things are going to be changing slightly in October, but all centers around an interview. Then we kind of develop a theme around that, and then there's a video podcast basically that I do, which is sharing stuff about my life and the way that this theme has applied there, and practical tips and stuff to help people. And then we do a collaborative creative project as well. Usually a video where people sort of submit little clips and photos and quotes and things like that. So it kind of create an ambient video with music on it that is just sort of you can just escape from the world for a few minutes. So there's a variety of different bits of content. And on the whole, I can sort of batch process the creation of some of it so that I'm not having to do it month on month.
Right.
So yeah, I try to do that, but obviously, sometimes life gets in the way, and there are moments where I'm like, oh, I've got to do this by next week, and then it's
Yeah.
so it's catching up again.
Right.
But
Did you start that from the get-go, like the minute you launched your podcast, or was this something that, I think you already said it, you said, you were getting emails, more and more emails, and so you're like, okay, this is now the time to launch this, right?
Yeah, it was something that I developed. I think I'd been doing the podcast probably been doing it for a couple of years, actually. And yeah, it was kind of driven by, right, I wonder how I can start to generate some income so that the site kind of, because as you'll know, once you start building a mailing list and you start getting more traffic on your website, the costs of keeping all of that going actually build up, and it can become quite expensive. So I was like, I need to find ways to self-sustain all of that.
Yeah.
And that seemed like a great option, and it's kind of gone from there, really.
Great. Okay. And so now you're kind of taking what you learned and applying it to the songwriters as well.
Yeah, exactly. I've made all my mistakes with the Haven, and I'm like,
nice.
right, okay, hopefully I can get a head start on this one. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Wonderful. And so the other side income you have is the undertaking business, well, the employment really. And I think that's an important message in a way that a lot of entrepreneurs, they always think, well, I have to, I want to do my own thing, and I just get started and quit my job and the money's just going to start rolling in. I actually, there's two camps basically. Some people say, no, you cannot work on the side, you really have to ditch everything and just be an entrepreneur. And other people say, no, I think it's okay to have a job, where you get paid, and start slowly. And first I was thinking, like 5 years ago, is like, oh yeah, you have to go just full dive in. But now I actually also think that it makes more sense to have a steady job while you're developing your audience and your business. So it looks like you agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've kind of fluttered between both of those camps. Before I took the undertaking job, it was I was basically freelancing, and I was kind of full-time entrepreneur, but not making quite enough to make ends meet. And it was something that I really felt the pressure of, because I was making decisions based on how much money I could make quickly, rather than how much impact and how much value I could give to the people that in the long run are going to be my clients and the people that I do business with, basically. And that was a really important decision for me, because I was thinking, it's a long game thing. And actually, if I've got some sort of consistent income that's just going to be there, it means that the pressure is then off the business decisions that I'm making, and I can make better informed decisions.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because if you can't pay your bills, well, you always have to kind of come up with creative ways on how to do it. And so the focus is maybe more on the money than on the value.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
And you hear the word hustle quite a lot nowadays, and you're going to be hustling for the wrong thing. You're going to be hustling to make money rather than, hustling to bring your message into the world and to bring value, to make value, make impact.
Yeah, make a difference. Yeah. Let's talk about your, I like to call them the introverted superpowers. What do you consider your biggest strengths of being an introverted entrepreneur?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I think it's probably sort of conscientiousness. It's probably a sense of really thinking about why I do things that I do, and I guess we've sort of touched on this in many ways in the previous answers, because for me, it's not all about doing things for money. It's about, I care about why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I have to have good reasons to be doing it beyond it's a way to make money. And so, yeah, I would definitely say that's a big introvert strength of mine. But I'd also say that has the potential to be a biggest weakness as well, because it can. I don't know. I find that it can paralyze me sometimes if I'm, especially when you're thinking about like marketing and promotion and things like that, because I hate feeling like I'm being marketed to when I'm sort of on other people's sites or on other people's mailing lists and things like that. I think many introverts are the same. It makes me want to kind of run a million miles when I see some of the techniques and processes that I've learned from the experts, and when I see other people employing them, I'm like, I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to make money from me, and that can lead me to a place where I'm like, I can't do anything. I can't do anything to grow my business because people are just going to like see through it, and they're gonna... and yeah, I guess the kind of that thing of the fear of being a hypocrite in that sense is quite big. But I suppose that in itself then comes full circle, because it leads to a slower level of growth, slower rate of momentum towards my goals, because I'm so aware of that. But I think that can be a very positive thing as well, because it means that you build trust with people, and you have proper conversations, and I think actually just being honest about that as well is quite important, because people are like, oh good, I'm glad you get that, but actually I'm also people understand that in order to sustain a business, in order to create value, you've got to make money in order to make that happen. So yeah, it's two sides of the same coin. I think it's
a tough one. Yeah, it definitely is a tough one, because on one hand you want to do what you love, and in order to do that, well, you have to make more money and actually sell your services. But then I totally agree with you. It feels just so sleazy and slimy when you do those pushy techniques, and you don't want to do that. But I think there is a middle way, and a podcast is one of those ways, I think, where you're just giving value and it's kind of like you said, it's a slow process, but in the end I think that's what works for us introverts anyway.
Totally. And I think people appreciate that as well, like the number of times that because I pour loads of time into obviously doing the podcast and writing blog, and people are then ready to pay you for more, and they want more of you, or more of a certain resource or whatever, and they're like, if giving you money will make that happen, then I'm more than happy to do that. And so yeah, it's creating that kind of culture, I suppose, of I'm giving all this stuff away, and if you want more, then that's great. Like this is how you can do that, and it will cost this. But yeah, it's definitely a middle way that does work, and I've become more comfortable with over the years. Definitely.
Yeah, even though I just noticed your voice went kind of much more lower when you said it cost this. It's like that's difficult for us introverts to say how much it actually costs. That's always the awkward moment when people ask you, well, how much is this going to cost? Oh yeah, okay. Then you get, oh,
it's going to cost this, but if you don't want to pay that, then yeah, I think we have a tendency to undersell ourselves as well quite a lot of the time.
Definitely.
And underprice things.
Yeah. Take us to an aha moment you had, and tell us the story, something that made you go, wow, now I get it.
I think there's probably two main aha moments in the past sort of however many years, 5-6 years. First one was discovering what it meant to be an introvert in the first place, which it was either 2010 to 2011, I think. And I came across an article by Carl King, which was 10 myths about being an introvert, and it just went through all these points. I was like, wow, that's all of those are me. I relate to every single point on this list, and it's like introvert. That's the word for it, is it? Suddenly, everything made sense, and I went and bought Marty Olson-Laney's book, The Introvert Advantage, and it was like, okay, so much of my life has suddenly been contextualized here. And my relationships with people, the energy processes that I go through, and why I feel really drained after periods of intense socializing and creativity and all these kinds of things, and actually started to think, okay, how can I make life work in a better way for me so that I can actually go after the goals that I want, that mean a lot to me. And then the second aha moment was probably 2 years. Whenever I spoke to Paul Jarvis, who wrote a book called Everything I Know, and in his book he talks about this idea of having an upper enough point of an income goal, which I found really, really interesting, because I think a lot of us, when we're building businesses, when we're starting out as entrepreneurs, or throughout our life as entrepreneurs, we have this this goal of enough, which is like a minimum thing. You say, I need to make this amount of money this year or over the next 5 years or whatever, in order for things to be sustainable. And he talks about this this friend of his who has this upper limit of enough, and he says, this is beyond this number, I don't need to do any more work, I don't need to earn any more money. And I found that really fascinating, because it goes against almost every human instinct, because I guess we adopt this kind of scarcity mindset of you've got to hoard everything that you can while it's there, while it's available, and this sense that actually this guy, he'll put down his laptop and he'll go surfing, he'll go and spend time with his friends and his family, and all of this stuff that actually makes life worth living. Right. And so that was just a really profound point for me, and something that I'm constantly kind of mindful of now, in setting that, obviously you need a lower enough point, because otherwise you're sort of going to go bankrupt, but also having this upper, this point where you're like, beyond that, actually this year I can set my laptop down and I can do things that actually mean stuff to me. I don't have to be on that treadmill pushing more all the constantly. Yeah.
That's a great point. And I think you're right. It goes against everything we always hear, because everybody else keeps saying, gotta, you can push yourself, you can scale, you can go bigger and bigger and bigger. And yes, you can go bigger. And yes, maybe you can make a bigger impact, because that's how I've seen it so far, is that, okay, if I do make more, I also can make a bigger impact. But then where does it stop, and where does life come back in? Because yes, you can always make more, but that also means you have to do more. So definitely,
it's always coming back to that question of why as well. Just
why?
You can
why
scale, you can become bigger. But why?
Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you say the name of the book again?
It's Paul Jarvis. I think it's Everything I Know. I think that's the name of it. Yeah.
I'll look it up and I'll put it in the show notes as well. Great. Okay, well, that already covers the book, but maybe you have another book that you wanted to mention in the golden nuggets that I make available.
Yeah, there is another book, actually.
Excellent. Yeah. Which one is that?
It's Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I don't know if you've come across that.
My favorite book too.
Is it? Yeah, I just absolutely love it. Like, it's it's along those same lines of, it's pursuing less but better, instead of the endless pursuit of more. Which
I think that was a big turning point when I read that book, and it kind of, I have this freebie on the website that
gives people 4 email scripts on how to say no to grow. And that, for me, I don't know if it's general for introverts, but for me, it's very hard to say no.
Mhm.
Like, new projects or even clients that you don't really feel like it's a good fit, and but you have to, you know, and that's what I'm trying to teach people is like you have to say no, because
Yeah.
otherwise you keep diluting yourself and starting all these different things that are not really what you want to do. And I think essentialism, that's when this all started.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to a interview between Michael Hyatt and Greg McKeown earlier, and they were talking about that. Saying no, finding ways to say no without even necessarily using the word no, because
Yeah.
everybody finds it, especially when there's no distance between you and the person who's asking you for something. It's and I think Michael Hyatt was suggesting saying, I would absolutely love to do that, but it would mean compromising my current commitments or something like that. So I'm going to have to say no on this occasion.
Yeah.
And just finding ways to just do that without sounding like you're just turning everything down as well.
Of course, yeah, and it's not easy, and so as I created these email scripts, who kind of it's similar along the same lines, and I think one is like, if I don't have time to see my mother, then that means I can't commit to anything else in my schedule, something like that.
That's
So
really important. Yeah, good tools.
yeah,
Thanks for creating those.
What about another personal habit, some kind of routine that you do, or anything that you do on a regular basis that you think helps you in your business?
I think getting up early, because for me, I'm a morning person. I know not everybody's a morning people, but yeah, I am a morning person. Realised, well, I've always known, and my parents have always known since I was a kid. But a few years ago, started getting up at 5:30 in the morning, just because it was the only time that I could find to write. And so that's when I did all of my writing for the blog and the podcast, and eventually started a journaling habit as well, which is just brilliant. Something that I've really upped a notch this year. I think I've only missed 9 days this year, which is a
Ooh,
record.
wow! And we're already in September, so
Yeah, I worked it's one day a month on average.
yeah.
So yeah, just being able to get up that early every day and get stuff done, all that writing and things like that, it's been great, because it means that by breakfast I'm like, I've already achieved something for the day. So everything from here is a kind of bonus. And I think that's probably the one habit that's really contributed the most to sort of pushing on over the past few years.
Nice. Yeah. I agree to a certain extent. I think there's kind of this buzz right now that can't remember the author of the book, the morning, what was the book called? I'll look it up. Something with the morning routines. Um, and so there seems to be this push where everybody now needs to get up at 5 in the morning. I think you said it right. It's, if you're a morning person already, then do that. But I don't think you should get up early if you're going to bed at, if your internal rhythm tells you to go to bed at midnight, and how are you going to get up at 5 in the morning, right? So I think
Sleeping is vital.
sleep is probably the most important routine that you need to first get it, and that's always priority. So I think, there's a bit of a push towards the getting up early, and I totally understand that that's not what you're trying to do, but I just wanted to make sure that people who are not, morning people, shouldn't all of a sudden think they have to become morning
Definitely.
people.
Yeah, I think if I was to relate it, to other people, it's just finding that time where you can get into your own space. Really,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
your quiet period of the day, because
Yeah.
I get up at 5:30. My wife doesn't get up at 5:30.
Yeah.
So it's that time where it's just me. And,
Exactly. Yeah.
So whenever
And I'm a
that
morning
suits you.
person too, and I get up early, and my husband has his time at night. He goes to bed very late, so
No, I totally agree. I can't stand it when people are like, "Oh, you've got to get up in the morning, first thing in the morning," because that's because we're all on different rhythms.
depends
There
on
are
the
night people,
person.
there are morning people.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Do you have a tool or an internet resource that some kind of thing that you use on a regular basis?
I think the one that I've found most helpful is probably Buffer.
Okay.
Because just being able to schedule social media updates through Buffer on Twitter and Facebook has been very helpful, and it's something that I do recommend to other introverts, because I find if I'm lacking in energy or confidence at some point during the day, and I'm like, I really need to post something on social media, I need to post a podcast or a link to something, and I find it really hard to summon the energy sometimes. But using Buffer means I just load it up when I'm feeling good and don't have to think about it then when it's posting. And then, it's not to say I'm disengaged from social media through Buffer. I think it's a great way for me to start conversations, because it just automatically does that. And then people might respond, and then I can engage then and come in on the conversation. So I'd say, it's a lot more efficient in terms of time usage as well. And it's been a very helpful thing for me personally.
I agree. I use Buffer together with Hootsuite, which is another one, and CoSchedule.
Yeah, I use CoSchedule as well.
Yeah, so there's quite a few tools, but Buffer is nice because it lets you easily send them out on during different times, right? Because otherwise it will all be posted at the same time.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think we kind of went through the questions I had for you. It's been a great conversation. Thanks so much, Andy. Let's I always like to end with the mindful ending, and I wanted to ask you what you're grateful for today or this week or this month.
Yeah. Well, I spent 3 days in the studio last weekend recording 5 new songs, which it's the first time I've recorded outside of my home studio for a very long time. And so it's really nice to be able to make music with some really good friends of mine. And I'm just grateful for being able to do that. And, just the fact that I'm able to make music generally in life. And it's just something that I find really great. And so
that's wonderful. I'm so jealous, actually. I'm always jealous of these people who can just create something, like that with your own hands, with your own. I do painting, but it's not the same thing. It's just for my own use, where you actually make it available for people to enjoy and appreciate it. So thank you. I'm grateful for you too.
Thank you.
Excellent, Andy. Well, thanks so much for your time. This has been great. And talk to you soon, okay?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You can find Andy on his website at sheepdressedlikewolves.com or on Facebook, facebook.com/Andy.Mort. Also, make sure to check out his podcast with the same name, Sheep Dressed Like Wolves, on iTunes or Stitcher. Next time, I'm going back to Australia and talk to Catherine McKenzie Smith, another fellow podcast host. Don't miss it. That's it for this episode of the Introvert Biz Growth Podcast. You'll find the full show notes at sarahsanakroce.com/episode 14. And if you don't have it yet, get your free 4-step guide on how to say no to grow. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the show on iTunes or Stitcher and tell your introverted friends about it. I'll talk to you again in 2 weeks. I know it seems long, but time flies, and pre-excitement is half the experience. Talk to you soon.